Hey gang. So I was gonna do a little thing, sort of like I did. I think it was at the Fleet Week, or was it IAE last year? I don't know. It all blends together now. I've been doing this too long. Um, I was gonna kind of do a quick recommendation on ships for each day, but yesterday I got swept up in the bug where the Corsair, which I've had on concept since 2019, it's one of the ones that comes with a name that you can actually name the ship. Uh, I got hit with the bug that the ship wasn't in my hangar, along with a couple others, but the Corsair was the one that I actually cared about. Um, I was going to kind of do a live reaction. I've been really trying to avoid spoilers on the ship. Like, this will be the first time I've actually seen it in game. Um, I went ahead and I added some guns to it in the flight control, the vehicle loadout manager down here. So, I mean, it's going to look a little different from the other ones that you've seen. Just kind of built it out more the way that I generally like ships. But I was going to do that. And as I do that, I was going to kind of talk about some of the things, kind of go into a little bit of musings on what I think is going to change in the near future. Just things that CIG has talked about, that there's some misconceptions about, and this will kind of be a good ship to kind of go in and talk to that about. So let's get this. Whew, so look at that. I went ahead and I got the black and red paint because that's the colors of my org. So if you look over there on the far side, you'll sort of see the Carnival logo, and their color is a primary color of black with a tertiary or secondary color of red and a tertiary color of white. Sometimes the white and the red can mix, but you can sort of see with the black and red one here. So part of the musings I was going to get into was actual crew requirements, and a ship in this size is actually a good way to start. And so before I get into that, one thing I had heard was that you couldn't pull the gimbals on this. You apparently can. But from what I've heard, she's a really, really sluggish bird. So gimbals might make more sense. I just wanted to see what she'd look like with the big ass cannons up front, and she looks pretty intimidating. So this is Sygne, which is a name from a CJ Cherry book called Merchanter's Luck. It's one of the ships from there. Oh, and look at that. You can see it. So there's the name on there. So you could only actually get the name on the ship if you bought it at concept. Eventually, I am sure they're going to have it that you can name all of the ships. But for right now, the Sygne is mine. But let's get into, and this might be a little bit more frazzled musing than usual. I'm not running off a script. I just kind of have thoughts in my head. And this is my first time seeing this ship in game, so you might hear me go ooh ah a lot. So assuming this is the way I get in, I'm wondering if that little portal there is future-proofing hacking. Like, you'll be able to hack the door with that little portal, which means they'll have to go back and retrograde all the other ships at that. That thing came down pretty quick. So where this ship falls into a category, it is kind of the same interior lights. Nice. What else is up here? Room light, emergency, floodlights. Saw something change over here. Did that get brighter? I think that got brighter. Maybe? Try that again. Like I said, might get a little bit distracted here. Crew-wise, that is definitely getting brighter. Oh, yeah, they're right there. So it's actually got floodlights on the entrance. That's actually kind of nice. Situationally useful, but a cool feature. But anyway, a ship this size, this is a contemporary with the Constellation, the 400i, and I'm forgetting one. Mercury Star Runner. So all of those ships kind of fall into the same category. At one point, the 600i was supposed to be a competitor with this, but during concept, it grew and grew and grew until it turned into a space blimp, and now it's more the size of a Starfarer than the size of one of these ships. But the important thing about the crew size of these ships is this scale of ship and that little grouping was supposed to be the biggest ships you could take out solo. And so solo doesn't necessarily mean you're using it to its potential. Like if you take the Andromeda into consideration, that's a pretty sizable bay. If you take the Andromeda in consideration, you can fly that thing solo, and it's got pretty beefy guns controlled by the pilot. It's got a lot of missiles that also can be controlled by the pilot. But you're missing out on 2 turrets and the Merlin sitting in the back. So if you have 4 people on an Andromeda, maybe even 5 if you have one person that's kind of an engineer, then that thing is used to the maximum of its potential. But there's only, I think there's only 4 berths on it, so there's only 4 places you can sleep. So 4 people is probably using that ship to the maximum of its potential. And the Mercury Star Runner, maximum would be 3. That way you're putting 1 person in each turret and someone's flying. With 400i, same thing. You've got 3 berths and not gonna let me push that button. Well, if I want to push that button, guess I can't push that button. That is gravity generator. That's why I can't push that button. Oh, we got something over here too. So what a lot of people are thinking of doing is running ships this size solo. And they're saying, I'm going to run it solo and I'm going to use blades. And I'm just going to put blades on my ship that'll control all of the turrets, and that way I can play this game single player. I don't have to worry about other people, don't have to worry about other crews, anything else. I can just play the game, log in whenever I want, and that'll be that. Now the catch is that's future proofing too, so that'll be interesting. It looks like it's a shield generator. I'm not sure why you'd lock that. One thing that's interesting about this, so Drake is kind of known as being not necessarily piratey, but their ships are common and they're easy to fix and replace and stuff like that, so they're more likely to be used by pirates. Your entire engineering suite is right off the most likely area of ingress, so interesting choice. But anyway, so back to blades. People kind of have this conception that they'll just be able to get a ship computer and just run a bunch of blades, and then they won't need to have any crew or anything. So there are areas of that, and I see some other things I want to talk about here in a second, that I think are wrong. So far, what CIG has shown us about ship computers is, yes, you can pop them open, and yes, there's subcomponents that can come out. And so the more high-end you have that ship computer, so if you have a grade A ship computer, it's probably going to have more slots. The most slots we have seen on their little demos so far has been 3. So those slots will do things other than just control turrets. So if you've ever taken out a prospector, they have all the little modules that'll change how the mining laser works. Those slots on the computer are eventually going to do similar things. So they'll either make your ship run more efficiently, they might make you jump faster, they might make your shields recharge faster. It might have built-in engineering. We really don't know. They haven't really talked about it, but they've talked about these blades, and basically you put in a blade and it remote controls the turret. So it's basically AI control the turret. So far what we know about that is that AI turrets in this game so far haven't been super accurate. Like, I don't know if you've seen some of my playthroughs where I go to prison, and I'll go hang out outside Port Olisar and let it zop me until my ship explodes. The turrets will be shooting under my ship, and I actually have to move into the line of fire in order to blow up. So AI turrets aren't amazing in this game. So people thinking that they're going to have, and it's possible to have different grades of targeting blade too. So you can get those things that would be more functional or more devastating, more accurate, quicker to target, that kind of thing. But even then, you're still looking at 3, which would be fine for a ship like this. You'd still be leaving 1 turret unused because it has the 2 side turrets. It's got the port turret, the starboard turret, and then it's got the 1 turret over the butt. But this thing has enough guns forward firing that you wouldn't need to really worry about. Constellation Andromeda, it has 2 turrets, so you'd be covering everything in that. You could do that one solo. But you start getting into the bigger ships, you start thinking about a Carrack. Now all of a sudden, which turret are you going to leave out? And a lot of the functionality of a ship like the Carrack is in the multi-crew aspect. It has those drones. So are you going to hop out of the pilot seat and go operate the drones? Are you going to hop out of the pilot seat and go grab a Pisces? Are you going to hop out of the pilot seat and go do engineering? No, you really need other crew for that. So blades are not going to be the solution that everybody thinks they are. And more than that, there's a lot of functionality you're leaving on the table. So a ship this size is probably going to be about the extent of effectiveness that a blade will have. That you'll fill a couple roles and you'll be able to solo the ship. What I think CIG is kind of bumping into, and if you'll notice some of the larger ships that they've released recently, like the last 2 big ships that they've released have been the Perseus and the Odyssey. Both of them have had low crew requirements. So the Odyssey, for example, I think it said that you could run it with 3 people, but you could conceivably run that thing solo. Like all of the turrets are remote, so something like that you actually could blade up. The Perseus, same thing. It's got 2 big turrets. You could blade that thing up too. So I think what CIG is realizing is that most people are going to be playing this game, even if they're extroverts like me, you're going to be playing in a small group. You might be able to get, I'd say probably a group of about 2 to 5, and I'll kind of get into how this ties into how I thought up the carnival, but you try to think, even dropping in groups of 3, it can be hard to coordinate that group of 3. We're all going to log in on this day at this time, and we're going to play, and you're all at different locations, so you kind of have to meet up somewhere, and then you got to decide what you're going to do. Eventually, you'll be able to log out on a ship like this, and when you log back in, you'll be on this ship. So even if it's your friend's ship, if you log out in, I'm assuming this is, let me look real quick. Yeah, this is one of the berths. So if you log out in one of the berths, you'll log back in on the berth on your friend's ship, I assume, and it would spawn up the ship in the verse, regardless of whether your friend was on or not, the one that owns the ship. Is another side topic. But that's, if you're playing in a group of 2 to 3, you'll probably be able to meet on the regular. You start getting much larger than that, and it starts becoming a lot like an RPG game when you try to keep it going as an adult, that people have real life commitments. And so people can't, some people will be able to drop in here every night. Some people might not work until later, so they can drop in the mornings. Some people might have weekends open. Some people might have family commitments on the weekend, so they can't get in. So getting a group of people together is problematic. Orgs nullify that a little bit because you have a larger base to kind of call on of, hey, I'm going to pull this ship, let's go do something. But as the game becomes more expansive and more spread out, that's going to become harder and harder to do unless you're all traveling as a pack, which is kind of one of the ideas behind the carnival. But one of the ways that I think CIG will get around that is NPC crew. And I think that rather than blades, you'll be able to hire NPCs that'll hang out on your ship. And I've kind of thought that this would be their solution for a while. I think that a human player will always be better than an NPC, but you'll be able to hire NPCs at different classes. So you can hire Duff McKenzie, who doesn't know anything, but he's a body in a seat. So, I mean, he can operate the turret, but he's not going to be very good at it. Or you could hire Buck Starjaw or something like that that's 100% accurate, but it's going to cost you $100K a day. So you better make it worthwhile. I think that's how they're going to balance it. And Privateer 2, which was not a Chris Roberts game, but was based on a Chris Roberts game, kind of worked that way, that you could have wingmen that you paid for. And if you wanted an ace wingman, it would cost a lot more than if you just wanted like an extra target for the bad guys to shoot at. And I think that that's the way that they're going to eventually have to go with some of these ships. Like something like the Javelin has a crew size of 80. So you might be able to pull that one for an org event on the odd day, like, hey, at the end of this month, we're going to all crew up a Javelin, we're going to go blow up this one thing, and you're all going to get in the Javelin, you're going to blow up that thing on that one day. But people aren't going to want to be engineer number 14 on the Javelin scrubbing the decks for years and years and years of this project. That's just not a fun game loop, and if they are, you're not going to find 78 of them. So that right there is kind of my musings, that blades are going to be extremely limited and you're going to be making a sacrifice in order to take them out. So if you want a blade, you can have a blade. If you want to fill a turret with a blade, you can do that. You'll be able to take a ship like this out solo using blades, but you're going to make sacrifices. Your scanners aren't going to be as good. You might not travel as fast in jump space. You might not be able to scan accurately. Those little modules, there's going to be costs and benefits for that. So people just say, yeah, I'm just going to take blades. And there's going to be limitations to blades. You're not going to have 40 blade slots or something that you can just fill up all the turrets on your big ass ship. So be aware of that. I think the way that they're going to balance it out is moving forward is lower crew counts or lower crew requirements. So you could realistically run a ship with 3 players, and then you could kind of fill out the rest of the NPCs and maybe run 1 or 2 blades if you want to make that sacrifice. That's kind of my thoughts on where they're going to go with that. So that was kind of the main musings for this one. I think they're going to fill the role with NPCs eventually. Let's look at this ship. I want to drool. So this right here, that looks like the power schematics that aren't in yet for engineering game loops. So this right here, if you kill like this power slot and that power slot, or like these 3, you'll cut off the back of the ship from the front of the ship, power wise. So you can turn off, these are probably turrets. So I'm guessing those are the 3 turrets. These are probably the guns. Those are probably the engine symbols. So we'll see that eventually. That's one of those things that will roll out for the Hammerhead first. One of the reasons that I think they're going to get much faster. So I mentioned this when I was doing my wild speculation on what the cutter, what size it was going to be. It turns out I was right initially. It's right about in between the size of a prospector and a cutlass. So guessed right on that one, just based on the time it took to make it. So yeah, it's sort of a contemporary with the Nomad and the Avenger Titan and the Reliant class. Looks like an interesting ship, good starter, good price for it. But my theory on how it could be bigger was little things like this. So this is the more or less the table and sort of center console for the Caterpillar. And these bunks, you can sort of see how this is going to be a module. So the next time they build a Drake ship, they're going to have these walls, they're going to have these floors, they're going to have these little bunks, they're going to have this table as an asset, they're going to have that as an asset, they're going to have this wall piece as an asset, they're going to have all of these things as Drake assets. So they'll essentially be able to kit bash a ship and bust it out much faster. And so when I was thinking the Drake might be bigger, or the cutter was going to be possibly bigger than I thought it was going to be, can I turn on a light in here? I can't. Aha! Oh, it's the shoilet. A Drake ship with a shoilet. Classy. But my theory was that they could start building bigger ships much faster. So that sort of 40-day window that I was using, that this the airlock. Oh no, that's the elevator that goes outside and up. Nice. That's kind of a cool idea. But once they have all of these parts, they can start working these ships out much quicker. So they'll be able to build something this big in just as a random number as fast as they built the cutter, because they have all the parts already. So they've built this ship with all of these assets. Now they can just roll out the actual, use all those assets to make it. They still have to make the exterior, and they have to make the interior fit the exterior. But with all of these pieces, they can basically just start slapping things down. They don't have to make it from scratch. I take it these are all probably just rooms. So my theory there was that ships are going to start picking up pace. I'm really looking forward to that day. Sit down in this real quick. I don't think I'll be able to turn it on because we're in the armistice zone. Let's find out. Yeah, maybe I will. Let's see. Where is power? Can I turn you on here? There. Yeah. Come on, where are you? Oh, that's kind of cool. Well, as I am looking around here, yeah, I would think that's my multi-tool. They will eventually hit the point. Yeah, I don't think I could turn this. Oh, wait. There it is. Power up. There we go. This is kind of what I wanted to see. That's not bad. You can't quite see over the nose. But you can fire straight forward. So if you're shooting at something bigger, I mean, these are only Badgers, so they're size 2s. So, you're not going to be hitting very hard, especially when compared to the other guns, but you could keep a light fighter at bay. So that is something else that I think will change. I'm assuming this is the captain's quarters, is that eventually, oh yeah, so that's basically just the same room back there, but flipped sideways. Oh, did they have? Nice, they got a suit locker in there too. Cool. And that goes down underneath, which is kind of a cool idea. What the hell is that? Just throw it on the ground. That's very Drake. Yeah, we could put a couple screws and put it into the wall, but it takes work. I don't really want to do work, so that's fine. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna be taking Sygne out a lot on this this particular thing here. Come on, open up. So ship pipeline will gradually speed up the more that they get these. Oh, and this is the airlock. The more they get these asset packs in, and the less that they have to worry about. That is pretty nice. That is nice. Can I close the door from here? I would be surprised. Well, maybe. Nope, out of reach. That is pretty sweet. It's low slung, too. I'm wondering if it'll have problems landing on planet geometry. That is pretty nice. That is a sweet ship. The big-ass guns up front. I'm pretty happy with that. All right. Well, another thing that I think will change, and I'll kind of get into this in another show, but as armor, which isn't in a game yet. So, I mean, I can kind of understand why CIG isn't worrying too much, because both armor and the flight model aren't in the game yet. So, there's no real reason to tighten up that aspect of ships yet. Oh god, I've been waiting a long time for that ship, but that's nice. So each manufacturer, which is where I was going with armor, is kind of based on a loose triangle. So it's actually in the power controls, the resource management, is you've got speed or maneuverability. You've basically got the engines, the defensive capabilities, so like shields and armor, and you've got firepower. And firepower can be both guns and missiles, or even unusual things such as bombs and EMPs. You can think of that as offensive. So you got offensive, defensive, and maneuverability. Each of the manufacturers kind of have their niche in there. And on another talk, I'm going to kind of go through, probably tomorrow, I'll go through, or later today, I'll go through what I think each ship's niche is. Because I think that we're hitting the point where there's enough ships in the game where talking about each individual ship isn't as helpful as kind of talking about the broader themes of each manufacturer, and then just sort of deciding off of that which one of those manufacturers kind of have the themes that most match up with your style. Like if you're big on straight line speed and firepower, Drake is for you. They're not going to really, they can't really take a hit, but they can sure as hell dish one out. And the point is to hit something so fast and hard that it doesn't get a chance to shoot you back. Because if it gets to shoot you back, you're probably toast. Especially if it's something with punch equal to yours. Where ships like Origin are kind of more defensively based. So they're a little more maneuverable, and they're faster, and their shields are a little bit better, so they can get away from the fights. And you can kind of see that in the alignment of the weapons, that generally they'll have weapons facing backwards, or at least that can shoot behind them because they're planning on running away. Then you have kind of balanced ships like Aegis and Anvil, and they're a little bit heavier on the armor. They're not quite as maneuverable, and so they're more defensive minded. So thinking about the manufacturers in that light, you can start to kind of say, well, I like to play this style, so I'd like to look at that manufacturer. And then you can kind of focus on that manufacturer and be like, ooh, I like that ship and that ship because they do the kind of things I want. So today is Origin Day. I was going to make one recommendation on this one, so let's go ahead and head to IAE, and I'll show you that recommendation. We'll call this one. We made it to the show floor, and as I go up there, I thought that this would be a good time to plug my org for a couple seconds, just while we're on the topic of crew sizes. So as I was saying, I think the optimal crew size in this game, I think kind of what CIG is going to eventually settle on, is probably about, actually probably your typical tabletop role-playing group, so about 3 to 5 people. Much larger than that becomes too hard to really organize them. You can do it, but it's kind of like one-offs and like events and stuff like that. You could get a bigger group together, but typically you're going to be in sort of that sweet spot of 3 to 5 people. And I think the ships will largely be along that scale too. And I am going to buy a crimson shirt because that is my color. Yes, I will. So I have been an org leader in the past, or guild or clan or whatever you want to call it, and have been involved in a lot of them in a lot of different games through the years. And they're always kind of a military structure of a pyramid. So you always have like 1 or 2 leaders at the top, and then a couple lieutenants in between, and then a bunch of people down below them. And information generally flows downwards. So, who we got today? We got Drake, and we want to go to the Zenith Hall, because that is Origin. But it's always top down. It's always kind of too structured, and especially in a game like Star Citizen, where they're kind of focusing on small groups of 3 to 5 people, I thought maybe a cellular structure would be far more advantageous and just more fun to play. We're going to get past the, wow, my frames just died and went to hell. Holy shit. Okay, let's go up to the show floor and get away from whatever the hell is happening here that's causing this thing to crash. My my computer isn't bad, but it's not really high end. So it's starting to show its age a little bit for scenes like that. Anyway, so the idea is that you would be able to have your small group of 3 to 4 people, and then the carnival would be able to organize around the fact that, okay, you 3 guys are running prospectors. We'll set you up with this cell over here that's running an expanse. So they're the ones that are going to refine all of your materials. And so instead of having to have one person that wants to be a prospector having to sit in an expanse, you'd be able to team up with this other cell that's doing this. And then we could drop in a cell that wants to be escorts, so they'd be guarding you. So the thought would be that you don't have to build up an org. The org is already there. People are already playing the game loops they want to play. And as a collective whole, as the carnival, we would say, let's sort of merge these 2 together, or you play with people that you like, would be kind of the idea. So you're not going to have like a boss that's going to tell you what to do. And then you could choose your own leadership to represent your cell, and then those cell leaders would be represented by a supercell leader, and so on. But it's all an elective process. So that's kind of the general idea of the carnival. Is I built it around the idea that Jesus, this is allowed. Hang on, let me back up a little bit. Holy crap! I don't know how loud that is in the recording, but I'll find out. Totally blew out my mind with that one. Yeah, so I mean, the general idea is people are going to be playing this game in 3 to 5 people. I constructed an org around the idea of being able to play with micro orgs and still get the benefits of a big org. So let's go ahead and look at Origin. Origin, on kind of that triangle I was talking about, is much more on defense and speed than they are on firepower. Their firepower isn't terrible, but it's not great. So let's get around these people. So this is their starter here. It's the 100i. Wow, that's really loud. The 100i, just a little guy. If you're going to get one, don't get the 100i, get the 135C. It's kind of the best of all worlds. It's got all the benefits of the 100 with more cargo. Don't get the, I think it's the 125A, their attack version. The only benefit it has is 2 missiles. Not worth it. 890 jump. Gigantic super yacht. Very cool. Not worth the money. Well, might be if you're running a big org and you want like a flagship, you could do worse. Very, very cool on the inside. 600i is kind of the baby brother version of this. 600i originally started as a contemporary of the Constellation. You could tell it grew a lot since then. It's got a rework going on now. Very cool ship. I love the way it flies. Won't be my daily driver, but it's a good ship. Again, probably not worth the money. Pop down here and hopefully the music is a little bit quieter. I think I have it turned down for you guys, but for me, I might have to take my headphones off. So this is the tiny ship. This is the 85X, which is this and the Pisces are probably the best snub ships. This one has a lot of guns on it, so it kind of busts that Origin deal of being defensively minded. Those, I think it carries like it has 4 guns. I think it's 2 size 2s and 2 size 1s, so can hit relatively hard for a snub. That's the M50, which is their racer. You could use it as an interceptor because it's so quick, but it doesn't have very big guns, doesn't have very many missiles, so it's more just kind of a surprise than anything else. These are their ground vehicles, which are the G12s. Yeah, G12A, which is anti-air. Those are about Cyclone sized, maybe a hair bigger. This is one that I think they're going to drop with the 600i when they do the rework. Right now, they've just kind of got the concepts. They're just starting white box on it, so kind of spacing it out. But I think when they drop the 600i, probably around June of next year, they'll probably drop this at the same time. This is the X1. It's their hover bike. But the ship for Origin that I would suggest, if you're big into Origin style ships, they also have the 300i series, or the 300 series, which is sort of the contemporary, actually, of the Drake Cutter, the Nomad, the Avenger Titan, the Reliant. The 300 series kind of falls into that size category. Pretty nice ship. But I would say if you're big into Origin and you want a daily driver, so these are the 300s here. And again, they're not bad. If you kind of want to get a taste for Origin, you could do a lot worse. They've got a good interior. You can log out in them. Their guns aren't terrible. They're never going to be meta fighters, but they're not awful. They can kind of hold their own. They're sort of fast, their acceleration. But I would say if you're going to go Origin, this right here is probably the one to go with. This is the 400i. And again, these ships are available in-game. You do not need to spend real money on this. Get your starter Aurora or starter Mustang and just do missions until you can afford this in-game. And you don't have to pay real money for it. So that X1, the bike, can actually go here. And the way that you can control it is you can hit that button there, and that goes up. But this ship was my daily driver for a little while. This and the MSR, the Mercury Star Runner, which is a Crusader ship, are the ones that I run around in on the regular because they're good sized. They've got great interiors. You feel like you're on a spaceship. See if this opens. Here we go. So you got all the components in there. You've got your cargo bay back here, which can fit a small rover. So think Cyclone sized, I think, is the biggest they'll fit in here. I don't think the Ursa will because the roof is too low. They tried for a little while to be able to get things like rocks in here. Unfortunately, you can't bring a rock in this ship. So that's kind of a limiting factor. It's got decent range, and you can sort of tell that they learned a lot of things. This is sort of why you want a ship that's built later in the cycle, because they think of things. So you've got this elevator here, which is pretty quick, but as a backup, you've got this ladder right here that you can use instead. So now you're on the second floor, and if I can outsmart this wall, there's your head. Captain's quarters are right back here. So you get this whole big room to yourself. Ooh, my frames are just dying a slow death here. You got room for your 2 crews. So again, when I was talking about building this game out for 3 to 5 people, 2 crew members that are NPCs might not be so bad money-wise. If you have them on something like this, their morale might not be bad. You can sort of see one of the guns there. So Origin, again, you'll usually find like the defensive guns will be pointing backwards because the ship is meant to run away. It's meant to be, you're not supposed to be sitting there brawling it out in this thing. It's not terrible at fighting, but that is not its strong suit. And then your cockpit is, or your bridge is up here, and you've actually got a pretty good view. Just the only thing to remember is that the nose is way out there, so it's kind of like piloting a center cockpit or rear cockpit boat. Like, the nose of your ship is way out in front of you, and you got to remember that when you're making turns or trying to land. But other than that, this would be my recommendation. Again, buy it in the game. Do not pay real money for it unless you've got that money to burn. Like, if you would spend that much money on a game, get it in game. It's worth it. I think that this is the best bang for buck of the Origin lineup. 300 series isn't bad, but this one just kind of fits a niche that the other ships in the lineup don't do. Like, the 600i is too big. The 890 is just ridiculous. It's a capital class ship, basically. But this one just kind of fits a nice niche. It's easy to solo if you want to, but if you want to bring along a couple friends, easily do that with this ship. I'd recommend just renting it like I was doing right there. You can either rent it for free right now during the free fly, or you could take it, or you could rent it through one of the kiosks later in the game when the free fly is over. And that's really all I got for now, gang. I'm going to be releasing another video soon about what I think of the different manufacturers and where they fit into that sort of triangle. And I'll get into that in a later video. Hopefully up later this weekend. If not, it'll be up next week at the latest. Because I've kind of been chewing on it for a year or so, and I want to get it out of my brain. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Kind of biff that word. So yeah, that's the kind of technical aspects you get on this channel. All right, all. Thanks for watching. See me next time.